get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down.
Hey, what do you say, boys and girls? It's another Detroit Lions winner here on Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progard, that's me. Happy to be joined, as always, by my longtime partner in crime, Phil Byrne. And Phil, tell me, how was your Monday evening this past week?
Well, it's a Victory Tuesday today when we're recording it, so it's one of those, Mondays that I think is going to be better than just about every other Monday this week, this year that I've had to this point. Talk about, everything that could have gone right for the Lions, and then some.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of what we saw Monday night. So, still speechless. Some mere 24 hours or so after the game by the time we're recording this.
So let's try and put this into context a little bit, Phil, because this is one of those games where you go through, like we did, you go through the schedule and you pick your wins and your losses, and you've got 50-50 games tossed in there. I don't think most people outside the 4 walls of the Allen Park facility on Republic Drive had any inclination that this game was going to go the way that it did. This was one of those, you chalk it up as a loss. They call it a schedule loss or whatever you call it, and then you move on to the next game, try and do better the next time. And the fact that you went on the road against a team that is Super Bowl good on Monday Night Football is, in my mind, that's the perfect recipe right there. So let's try and contextualize this, Phil.
Yeah.
You saw what happened in week 1. You can't unsee what you saw. You saw the Lions respond with their former offensive coordinator coming to town. You beat the brakes off the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
So you kind of knew, okay, you take week 1, you take week 2, the truth kind of lies somewhere in the middle. Phil, I don't think what we saw in this game against the Ravens was anywhere near in the middle between week 1 and week 2. So what does this say about this team now that we've seen these 3 performances in a row? Where does this say this team is right now, Phil?
So I was talking to my dad about an hour or two before recording this, just kind of getting his thoughts on it. I was in a couple text threads with, friends and family and stuff like that as the game was going on. To me, not taking away any of the playoff wins that we've had here recently, okay, this to me was the most impressive Lions win in the regular season in my lifetime. This is a Monday night game against, if not 1A, maybe 1B for most teams, for most picks to win the Super Bowl. I would say most people probably have some combination of the Bills, Ravens, the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the Eagles, as one of those teams. You saw in the pregame that every single person picked the Baltimore Ravens. They went into how good Lamar Jackson is specifically on Monday Night Football with a 22 touchdown to 0 interception ratio.
Let's not forget, he's almost untouchable against NFC opponents at large.
I think he's lost 2 games or something like that in his career against NFC teams. There's really no reason why you would have expected the Lions to go into Baltimore and do what they did last night. It makes no sense. More importantly, if you think about where we were after week 1, and knowing that the Lions have had some success in Lambeau here in the last couple of years, the offensive line wasn't there. The play calling wasn't there. I think a lot of Lions fans were pretty upset with the lack of pass rush on the defensive side of the ball, the defensive issues of allowing Packer receivers to get open time and time again and letting Green Bay get out to a big lead. None of those issues were here. The offensive line was great. The play calling was elite. Maybe damn near perfect play call from John Morton in the booth. I think he did a phenomenal job. Hey, do I think our defense is perfect? No. But my goodness, Vince, we got 7 sacks against the most athletic, the fastest quarterback in the league in Lamar Jackson. Um, this is an A++ game, and I just, I'm through the moon. Just with what I saw from this team last night.
So we're going to tear this thing apart bit by bit, Phil. We're going to have some fun with this as well.
Yeah.
We should. I think we deserve it at this point. But before we do, just one more broad look at this is what we saw outer space in that everything just aligned just right on the right day for the Lions, and the Ravens almost kind of had that week one Lions performance where they picked the worst possible
Yeah.
occasion to have the worst day at the office. What is what we saw?
So I think it's hard because we saw that the Lions had a great opening drive, and I think really up until about 4 minutes to go in the second quarter, I thought like we kind of controlled the pace and tempo of the game. Um, we had a 3-and-out that we had to punt. Baltimore capitalized, and we went into halftime on the Jake Bates field goal. By and large, Baltimore, from a offensive production standpoint, in the first half, really started to move the ball. And I was thinking this is gonna really turn into a shootout. But then we started to really kind of bear down, and Derrick Henry wasn't getting the runs that he had in the first half. We had a couple more stops on third down. They started punting the ball a little bit more. And all of a sudden, we had seen the Montgomery long touchdown run. And you're like, this line looks pretty good. What is happening to our offensive line? This offensive line that we just had a conversation, 2 weeks ago, Vince?
Yeah.
We're going, hey, is this offensive line a strength of this team anymore? And I was pretty much willing to say it was a weakness with how bad the interior of that offensive line looked. They handled the Ravens. I know they were down a couple guys. Kyle Van Noy wasn't there. Matabuke, the defensive tackle, wasn't there. They absolutely worked that defense. Marlon Humphrey looked like he should be looking for a job this week. The way that St. Brown went ahead and cut him up on a couple of his routes. Listen, this is that A++ game. We'd be foolish to expect this every single game. This is the NFL. This is now on tape. So it's likely that whatever the Lions did defensively to apply a little bit more rush, to be a little bit more cautious with not always bringing linebackers down at the blitz, but bringing them back, and the way that they handled Lamar Jackson, that's going to be on tape. I'd venture some more teams are going to try to go ahead and do that. But I think we can stop with the Ben Johnson talk now. I'm very, very happy with what I saw from John Morton. The way that he implemented both pass and run into this game, where it wasn't one-sided. It was pretty balanced. Jared Goff looked comfortable. The line looked great. I can't say anymore. I think it was just a phenomenal game plan from John Morton in this offense.
And I think you have to almost give an equal amount of credit to Kelvin Shepard if we're going to be dapping up John Morton like this, because let's not forget his deep, deep roots come from the Steve Spagnuolo tree. So what you're seeing is a lot of Spagnuolo-esque principles of, hey, let's keep Lamar in the pocket. I saw a very interesting stat during that TV broadcast during the game that said that Lamar throws the ball away 0.7 times per game. That means that he will not throw that ball into the turf or into the mezzanine to live to fight another day. And that means that the door is open to take sacks or turn the ball over if things go south. Things were going south at a pace the likes of which he isn't used to at all. And I think that speaks to why he was looking so uncomfortable being kept in the pocket, getting taken down by his shoestrings because he wasn't able to get free. Like you said, the stuff is on tape now, but at the same time, this is a situation where, hey, if you're able to do this against one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the entire game, at least you know that this is something that they are capable of doing. So great job all around by both coordinators, calling a great game. And I think what it comes down to is that this is all still in Dan Campbell's image, even though people were getting, ourselves included, were getting a little bit too high on the supply of what Ben Johnson brought to the table and what Aaron Glenn did in previous years, and seeing that, hey, they're not in the locker room anymore. How is this all going to shake out? It kind of gave a little bit of reassurance to us as fans that, hey, maybe things are going to be okay after all.
So I think one other point that I kind of want to hit on here, to me, the turning point of the game was the Hutch punch out fumble that he had on Derrick Henry. Obviously, we've seen the reaction of Derrick Henry when he went to the sideline and kind of the hissy fit that he threw. He was obviously upset. But if you also caught the demeanor or the attitude of Lamar Jackson as well, you could tell that both guys were rattled. Both guys were frazzled. Both guys were almost shell shocked and saying, like, how did we get in this mess where we have another late game turnover, giving the opponents plus advantage in field position, because that's exactly what had happened. Like that had happened, a couple times already this year. That to me was the play of the game, and I think we weren't really sure what to expect from Hutch coming back from this injury. He has to play. There's no one else that we can really send out there. Give Al-Qadim Muhammad his flowers for his onset, but 7-sack performance from this defense. Hutch got one of those sacks by his own right, but that punch out, I think, really rattled, and I don't think Baltimore recovered from it. I think that was the true changing point or turning point of this game. But what a phenomenal performance. One of the most balanced wins we as Lions fans have ever seen. If this game was at home at Ford Field, would we have won by 10, 14 points? Like, what would this point margin have been? That place would have been so loud with the way that, things came around. So the fact that they did this on the road in one of the most hostile environments, one of the places that people just don't go and get wins at, so incredibly impressive. And Vince, our projections show that just like all these other prognosticators,
nobody knows anything.
We have no idea what the hell we're talking about.
Nobody knows anything at all, except for 53 on one side and 53 on the other side.
Yeah.
Even they don't know a damn thing until 60 minutes is over and done with. I'm going to actually say, in my view, Phil, that the turning point of the game happened quite a bit before the fumble. So you may remember how the Lions and Ravens were kind of trading scores there. They were trading 3-and-outs there early on in the game. And then you remember that the Lions got that huge turnover on downs when the Ravens were going in near the end of the half. And the Lions got the ball back with a chance to really start to create some separation there at the end of the first half. Well, what did the Lions do? They went 3-and-out. And the Ravens then marched right back down and scored with 30-some seconds left to tie the game. The Lions obviously missed that 67-yard field goal because outdoors in a non-Denver stadium, that 9.9 times out of 10 just isn't going to happen. So you go in tied. But the key is that the Ravens got the ball to start the second half. So they were able to do what the Patriots have been doing all these years and kind of being able to flip the game by getting the 2-for-1. 2 scores or 1 score at the end of the first half and a score possibility at the first possession of the second half. And that's exactly how it worked out. So now the Lions are needing to chase the Ravens with possessions here. Fortunately, the Lions were able to hold up their end of the bargain by tying the game the first time they had the ball. But the turning point for me, Phil, was the ensuing 2 possessions after that. After the Lions tie the game with their first possession, Lions defense forces a 3-and-out, 3 plays, 0 yards. The Lions get the ball back and go on another 95-plus yard drive of their own to take the lead. Then the Lions hold the Ravens to a field goal. Now, you can debate whether or not that field goal actually went through the uprights. It looked kind
Uh,
of bizarre. If you put a
yeah,
gun to my head and told me in the moment, did that thing go in or did it not? I think it went in, but it's one of those situations where you're looking at things frame by frame and it's almost kind of
yeah,
having your brain play tricks on you. But nonetheless, so before the drive that resulted in the fumble, your defense forces a 3-and-out. Your defense forces the Ravens into field goals in a game where you know that if you have any intentions on winning this game, kicking field goals isn't going to be how you get there. And I think by that point, the ghosts started trickling into the stadium to
mm,
where on that third drive, Derrick Henry started seeing those ghosts, put the ball
mm,
on the rug, and then
yeah,
that thing just gets away from him at that point.
yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Like that really was a momentum shifter, to trade blows like that to where they got the field goal, we got the touchdown. That is pretty massive for sure.
So let's take a look at some stats here. So if you were just a average Jack who was looking up box score, you'd look at Jared Goff's numbers: 20 for 28, 202 with a touchdown, 72.8 QBR if that's your thing. Um, yeah, kind of decent. Not great, but not terrible. But it seemed to me like Jared Goff made winning plays all night long, particularly on third down and fourth down. Got to have it. Just about every situation, Goff came up huge in pretty much every time his number was called.
Yeah, he really did. Like it was one of those games where he just felt so incredibly comfortable. I wouldn't say it was like a perfect protection game or anything like that the Lions offensive line employed, but go find a game where he was on the road that he looked more comfortable than what we saw, So credit to the offensive line, he looked comfortable. His numbers, eh, pretty good. I mean, he's had much better games. But just to do this in this environment on this stage, again, I think this is the guy that really endeared himself to Detroit and got people to chant his name by performances like we saw last night.
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of the reason we'll get to the running game in just a minute, but I think part of what got the running game going was those two early completions to Jamison Williams on that opening
Mm,
drive. One was more of a deep play that went for 25 yards, and then the other one went for close to 20. But I think that kind of got the Ravens thinking, hey, we still have this passing game that we need to respect. And it got to a point where the running game was so effective for the Lions that you just stay with it. And there was a question, will John Morton be able to stay committed to the run game if everything's going good, or is he going to want to show, hey, here's all these plays in my bag of tricks here? They really employed a death by a thousand paper cuts approach to the Ravens defense. Montgomery, 12 carries for 151 yards and a couple of touchdowns, including that long 72-yard run that could have been a touchdown had he not run out of gas in the 20-yard line area. Jameer Gibbs,
yeah.
22 and 67. All in all for the Lions, 6 yards a carry on 38 rushing attempts. And like we said in the opening, Phil, credit to the offensive line for really showing growth and dedication to improving and getting better over what happened a couple of weeks ago to go on the road and put out an effort like this.
Yeah. And, I think credit is certainly to the players. But I think one of the underrated pieces amongst all the coaches that got shifted out was the fact that we kept Hank Fraley. And this is still the same offensive line coach, still working the same philosophies. I saw, Joe and Troy give him his flowers last night towards the end of the game, and rightfully so. Like, I think he had a couple of offers, I want to say from Seattle, maybe to,
Yep.
I don't know if it was to be their offensive coordinator or what exactly, or an offensive assistant or something like that. But I think he got a bump in pay or kind of a bump in title to
I
stick
think
around.
both. Yeah.
Yeah. But listen, what he's able to do with that interior of the offensive line, we got on the outside and we're good there. Like we don't really need much. Decker can pretty much go at this rate where I don't even think he needs to practice. It's just like just heal his body after each game. Penei Sewell, he's elite, right? We know what he is. Like he is one of one in the NFL. But it's the other guys that we've had questions on. And Mahogany late in the season last year really started to turn the corner. I think Tate Ratledge, a lot of people were very, very excited about. Graham Glasgow, of course, was kind of that big question mark because we knew he wasn't going to be Frank Ragnow. I got really, really down on him, after that first game. We saw the missed assignment where guys were going in opposite directions. They got exposed in week one. But whatever they have put in to protection, scheming, dialing down the communication, whatever it is, and making what could be a play seem like it's running 100 miles per hour, but making it run at 20 miles an hour for these young guys is working. And we saw that firsthand. The blocking they had were Montgomery, like that was just his bread and butter. Like he was so good at reading where those blocks were going. So credit to all these guys for being on the same page. I'm going to tip my hat to Hank Fraley, though, and just what he has been able to implement. So him and John Morton, I think, really putting together a pretty nice communication between each other.
100,000%. And you really do want to, I mean, I don't want you to hit your stride this early in the season necessarily. You want to be able to sustain this.
Yeah.
But number one, it's nice to know that this is something that they are capable of. So in a playoff setting, and that's part of what made the last couple of playoff exits that much more frustrating is we had hoped that they had something like this deep within them. We just needed them to actually go out there and do it. They actually went out there and did it in a real big spot to show that, hey, this is the Detroit Lions. We are capable of this. This is something that we can do against a Super Bowl caliber team. I mean, we said it. We had Derrick Henry out there seeing ghosts and crying like a fourth grader who just got benched in a youth football game. You've got Lamar Jackson out there who's out there same thing. He's completely bewildered looking on the sidelines. The only thing that I would say the Ravens can take some type of pleasure in is that this happened to be the Mark Andrews get-right game. He was a shell of his former self the first two games of the season, and he finally got right in this one. But besides that one nice carry for the touchdown in the first quarter, what did Derrick Henry do all night? Zay Flowers was a complete non-factor. I mean, this is what our defense did on Monday Night Football. I mean, it's I think we might be overstating it just a little bit because at the end of the day, it's just one regular season game. But I think it was important. I think it was well timed.
So our record right now, the same as the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, right? At 2-1.
Yep.
However, it almost seems, again, recency bias here. Here we go. With Green Bay going on the road and losing to Cleveland, going on the road.
That's a bad loss.
To winning at Baltimore, even though the records are the same, those results are not the same in like you just lost at one of the should be easiest places to go win. We just won at one of the most difficult places to go win. So they've got us one game. We'll get them Thanksgiving. I don't think we're at a point where I'm going to be concerned about possibly chasing them for a while here. Now, there's a lot of schedule to go, but with Joe Burrow being out for the Bengals and them looking terrible against the Vikings, I feel kind of good about these next few games. So
absolutely,
we'll see.
Absolutely. And like you said, the Green Bay loss, you can look back on it and say, just in terms of who it is, where it was, where it happened on the schedule, just unbiasedly, that's not a bad loss. Like, in college basketball, when you're doing the resume talk, good losses, bad losses, that was not a bad loss.
No.
If you're going and losing to the Browns, that's a bad loss. If you're Minnesota and you host the Atlanta Falcons, you get beat pretty good by them on Sunday Night Football, only for the Falcons the ensuing week to go and get mollywopped by the winless Carolina Panthers. Looking back on that, that's a bad loss. Yeah. So you're probably feeling a little bit better about yourself if you're the Lions, more so than probably any of the other teams in the division, waking up and starting your week 4 practices on Wednesday morning. Last little bit I want to talk about as far as the Lions-Ravens game, and this is just me nitpicking a little bit. I did not get nearly as many warm and fuzzies from the secondary, aside from DJ Reed falling on the loose ball that Derrick Henry put on the grass. I don't think the secondary really did anything super amazing. Brian Branch probably played his worst game as a Lion with the dropped interception,
Yeah.
the poorly timed penalties, uh, just not being as much of a blanket cover guy as he usually is. I don't think I heard Kirby Joseph's name once. Uh, Pretty poor pass interference penalty on Terrion Arnold, kind of going back to his rookie days with the early
Yeah.
season pass interference penalties. Not really a whole lot of good that I saw from the secondary, but boy, did the front seven, the patchwork front seven with guys being out. We've talked about it all start up to the season, guys who are out. We found out Marcus Davenport, surprise, surprise, put on injured reserve. We won't see him for the next 3 games after this. And you got guys like Al-Qadim Muhammad who really stepped up and played a phenomenal game. I think Tyleik Williams is really coming along as far as really occupying the middle part of that line, so that way the guys on the outside can start to be a little bit more disruptive. I think the linebackers really stepped up in a big way. Derek Barnes
Yeah.
had a couple of
He had
nice
a very
plays.
nice night.
I
Yeah.
think you're finally starting to see a little bit of the changing of the guard from it being more of Anzalone's defense to Jack Campbell's defense. Campbell all over the field. I think in a night where the secondary didn't play their best, the front seven really, really stepped up in a big way.
No, I think that's a great piece that you mentioned about the front seven there, Tyleik Williams. And again, think about this. With how well he has been playing, again, not lighting up a stat sheet or anything like that, but he's in on a lot of plays. He's stuffing a lot of runs. Like, he's filling his gaps. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing in that spot. The fact that when Aleem McNeil comes back, you're not going to usually, unless you're in the goal line stance, play 3 defensive tackles right next to each other.
But you could.
That one of those guys, yeah, you could, but one of those guys between DJ Reader or Tyleik Williams is going to be in a rotational spot. So whichever way you do, I mean, that's a pretty damn good 3D tackle rotation to have. That's probably amongst the best in the league at this point. So you've got that. Obviously, we're still a little worried about what's going to happen with that other spot. If we can expect more out of Al-Qadim Muhammad, like we saw last night, maybe we're surprised. Maybe he just needed more playing time. I don't know what it is, but the Davenport thing obviously a little worrisome. But yeah, credit those linebackers too. Barnes especially. I thought he had a very, very strong night. And he was actually used a little bit, like we had talked, kind of right up to the regular season, where there was some talk that before he was going to get hurt, or before he got hurt last year, there was talk that they were going to use him in more pass rush situations as well. So I think he got in on maybe 1 or 1.5 sacks in his own right last night as well.
I think the fans are definitely going to have some receipts material if this injury to Marcus Davenport starts to turn into more of a extended absence, even beyond the month that he's going to miss with this IR stint. Campbell says he doesn't think it's going to be a season-ending situation, but I mean, this is a guy who's missed way, way, way more games than he's played over the entirety of his career, and I think some guys are just made of porcelain china, and I think this is what we're dealing with here, and they made a conscious choice not to go to the outside. I'm not going to name names here. We've done that bit more than I can keep track of, and it's tired at this point, but they could have gone out and gotten some extra help on that defensive line. They chose not to. They said that Marcus Davenport, they're building up his narrative that he's the best player on that defense all training camp long, and once again, he hurts himself and possibly never to be seen again. So this is something to at least keep an eye on, but I don't want to ruin a jubilant and exciting addition because games like this don't come around too often for NFL teams where we all know that the NFL, probably more than any other league in the world, it's so hard to win, much less in a context and situation like this.
Yeah, I was thinking of Trey Flowers. Remember him? That's what Marcus Davenport reminds me of, where big free agent signing, never played.
I think Trey Flowers was more productive than Davenport was. The only difference was that was during the Quinn Trisha era where we weren't playing well at all. So it's almost like, okay, he did
Did
stuff.
it
Who
happen?
cares?
If it fall
Exactly.
trees in the forest, but no, yeah,
Boom.
exactly. It's the same thing.
Exactly. So before we move on to other things, the Lions held the edge in first downs, total yardage, time of possession by a pretty wide margin. The Lions did not turn the ball over. They had a really balanced attack, 200 plus yards on the ground, 200 plus yards through the air. They really did a great job of keeping things in control when they had it in their control once they were able to seize it after the second half touchdown by the Ravens. And 3 for 3 on fourth down is probably the stat of the night right there. If you had to pick one stat of the night, it was 3 for 3 on fourth down, and nothing to stick up your nose about. 7 for 14 on third down, not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Just got to work on those penalties. A couple of poorly timed penalties, 68 yardage and penalties as well. Only 10 penalty yards for the Ravens, but hey, 38-30, your final score. A game that really wasn't even that close because of that late score when the game was really all but decided at that point. Huge win. So now we look ahead to the Cleveland Browns, Phil. Like we said, the team that just knocked off the Green Bay Packers to send them to 2-1. Cleveland's got a sneaky good defense. You got guys on that front line like Myles Garrett. We've talked about him. Mason Graham, the rookie out of Michigan. A lot of local people know a lot about what he offers. You still got Jim Schwartz calling the plays on that defense.
Yeah.
It's something to where, we can't afford to kind of have that up-down type of situation, riding that high from the Ravens game and then not playing your best. Because if you're not careful, Cleveland can come in and really make life a little tricky for you. And then it's a situation where if things don't quite go your way, Cleveland pulls off the impossible. Don't look now, a team that we thought was going to go, 1-16, sitting at 2-2, heading into the quarter pole.
Yeah, a couple things about this Browns team. Just because their offense has struggled, don't think that they can't hang around. We saw that firsthand with Green Bay. The fact that they didn't have Quinshon Judkins for a couple of weeks and then he started playing this past week, had a pretty nice performance. Yeah, he was really good at Ohio State, in the lead up to their national championship victory. But they have had a really strong rookie class. Mason Graham, you touched on. He is going to be really good. So he looks to, maybe not have the stats per se, but that line is something to contend with. That should give our offensive line that we just gave flowers to and spoke highly of a lot of fits to deal with. But it's one of those things that the Lions should be able to still control the tempo of this game. You never know with Jim Schwartz, and if you're getting crazy Jim coming into this game, he's going to cook up something that he saw on tape that could rattle Jared Goff or something. But if you have a combination of what we had with offense and defense, even if it's not to the same level that we had against Baltimore, I would still feel comfortable saying the Lions should win by about 10 or so. But you never know. It's the NFL. Crazier things have happened. But don't let the Browns defense dictate the pace and get the 3-and-outs happening at home.
It's very important to keep in mind that the Browns played the Bengals week 1 at Cleveland, and it came down to a situation where the Browns got completely worked on a phantom pass interference penalty that set up the game-winning field goal by the Bengals. So Browns lose 17-16 to the Bengals because of that. In week 2 against the Ravens at Baltimore, even though the final score shows a completely different story, 41 for Baltimore, 17 for Cleveland, it was 10-3 at the half, and it was 20-10 at the end of the third quarter before Baltimore just pulled away. So for 3 quarters, Cleveland was really right where they wanted. They had the Ravens right where they wanted them before it just kind of got away from them. And then, of course, we know what happened in the Packers game. So this is yet another situation where you cannot take any opponent lightly. There are no weeks off in the NFL except for when you get your bye week. So we'll see what happens. But Browns, Lions, Ford Field, 1 o'clock, back to the 1 o'clock start time. We haven't seen too many of those in the last couple of years. And depending on what your level of favorability is for that. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that is what we got coming up this Sunday. So, Phil, before we get to our picks, I want to
Yeah.
just run one more thing by you here. We didn't get a chance to get into this with our preview and with the Packers game. Lots to talk about for there. It kind of just slipped past me. But you being a season ticket holder, anything new that you want to clue us peons in on as far as the fan experience at Ford Field for 2025?
Well, I didn't go to the home opener against the Bears. That was actually my parents. The one game that they now that they moved up north got to go home from. But I did get to go to a fan event that they had prior to the start of the season. I mean, there wasn't a ton there. They've obviously got some new things open up around the stadium. I'm trying to think if there was anything new outside of just new concession offerings. I don't think there really was. You know, Obviously they had the Robert Porsche, unveiling and the Pride of the Lions.
Yep,
So I think
yep.
they're doing a lot of cool things like that. The Lions Browns game, they're gonna have a country music artist, I guess, for a halftime show, which a couple of other teams have also had some halftime shows. So I don't know. The NFL getting all these big money TV network
Well,
deals,
if
and
you
it's
know
just
you're
becoming
getting
more
these,
of the norm
if
or
you know you're
something.
getting these slam dunk sellouts like the Lions are good for, what better way to try
Yeah.
and capitalize? I mean, it seems to make sense.
I will say though, I do love myself the good old corgi races that they've always had. That's always my favorite halftime show.
Yeah,
And you just have them run across the field and stuff like that.
I can
That's
say the
always a lot of
missus
fun.
is a big fan of that also.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. But no, I mean nothing that at least when I was there for the event that stuck out is anything new. I mean, it seems like we're always getting new concerts and things like that. I think there's like a pre-sale for an Ed Sheeran concert coming up, this week. But I don't work in Ford Field ticket offices, so don't ask me for the code. I don't know. I can't
If you're
help you.
looking to go to Ed Sheeran, Phil Byrne is not your guy,
No,
okay? Leave him
no,
alone.
yeah.
You're listening to this episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progart chopping it up with Phil Byrne. Glad you could be with us as Phil and I discuss the Lions' huge 38-30 win on Monday Night Football over the Baltimore Ravens to improve to 2-1. And again, a very timely win for a number of reasons, but also if you just happen to be a fan of Detroit sports in general, it's a good distraction from the Detroit Tigers to where if you haven't been paying too
Who?
close of attention, they officially let a 15 and a half game cushion completely vanish into ether. The Cleveland Guardians have officially caught the
Boo.
Tigers, and with 5 to play, they are dead locked atop the American League Central. So it's not even a slam dunk. The Tigers even make the playoffs at this point, much less win the division, much less get that first round playoff bye. So, you know what? We're just going to keep the positive vibes going with the team on the east side of Brush Street.
Yeah, there we
That'll
go.
be the Detroit Lions, and leave the other team someplace else for the time being. But anyway, so we spent a lot of time talking about the Lions. We made mention of the fact the Packers tough loss to the Cleveland Browns, the team that is coming to Ford Field next. What we did not mention yet, Phil, were the other two teams in the division. It was a get-right game of epic proportions for the Chicago Bears as they help the newly appointed head coach and Ben Johnson get his first career victory as a head coach as they blasted the Dallas Cowboys. And it was all Minnesota and then some. First game with Carson Wentz as the starting quarterback, as J.J. McCarthy tends to a mysterious and quickly popping up and dealt with high ankle sprain after the Sunday night game last week. McCarthy out for 2 to 4 weeks. You've got Carson Wentz in there, and it was 48-10 over the new look Cincinnati Bengals. Your thoughts on what you saw in the other two divisional games on Sunday, Phil?
With the Bears, let's kind of start there. Um, this was the Caleb Williams breakout game a little bit. I think something that Bears fans had been wanting for a long time. I think this was finally the game that it seemed like him and Ben Johnson were on the same page. Um, if you think about this offense, Roma Dunze, man, he's had a pretty special year to this point. So he'll probably be in contention to make the Pro Bowl, I'm guessing, if he continues on this way. But yeah, the Bears obviously putting a lot of points on the board. We knew with Dallas they'd be a little one-sided on that offense. Their defense, again, still not looking very good. And then the other game there, you talked on it. Not quite sure what's going on with JJ, but Carson Wentz, um, maybe not the best numbers in the world, but far from being pedestrian. When you go 14 to 20, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns. That Minnesota defense, outstanding. Star of the show, though, rushing the ball for Minnesota was Jordan Mason, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. So that was pretty good for a guy that, wasn't the number one running back in Minnesota to start the year. And I'm not quite sure what happened to Jake Browning, who everyone was kind of hyping up for the Bengals leading into this game. So I definitely thought that Cincinnati had more to offer than what we saw, but that's how the cookie crumbles. So both very, very impressive wins for our neighbors in the north.
Big day by Isaiah Rodgers for the Minnesota Vikings in a game where they really needed to start to flex some of that defensive muscle. And for the Bears, I guess it's just proof in the pudding as to why the McCaskies and Ryan Poles and whomever else was in on that decision decided to send Matt Eberflus packing. Because let's not forget, Eberflus is the guy calling the defense for the Dallas Cowboys, and their defense has looked anything but solid the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah, I think that's one that Bears fans are going to scratch their heads at. This guy was their coach for as long as he was.
Absolutely. Let's get to some picks, Phil, and then we'll ride off into the sunset. Thursday night football, we've got the Seattle Seahawks laying 1.5 as they stay within the division. They travel to the desert to take on the Arizona Cardinals, who have just lost their starting running back, James Conner, for the season due to injury. Seahawks, Cardinals on Thursday night, Phil.
Cardinals pretty disappointing on Sunday against the Niners. I know the Seahawks. I think they have enough in this one. I'll take the Seahawks.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals in this one. For some reason, It seems like these NFC West teams can't ever seem to get it done in a big spot on the road within the division. I know winning on the road in the NFL is not easy, but in particular, it seems like these teams, like if Seattle goes on the road, they're going to drop 2 out of their 3 division games. Same can be said about Arizona. If it were up in the Pacific Northwest, I'd say something different, but give me Arizona in the 1.5. Next game is early Sunday morning, 9:30 Eastern Time kickoff. It's Vikings and Steelers in Dublin, Ireland for the first international game of the 2025 campaign. Vikings laying 2.5 as they take on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Phil.
Yeah, because the matchup that we all wanted to see was Aaron Rodgers versus Carson Wentz. 2 guys that haven't been exactly great teammates in the locker room. I don't really know what to make of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't really know what to make of the Minnesota Vikings, but I know that defense travels. And if Jordan Mason was able to run like he did a week ago, and they still have all the receivers that Wentz can throw to, I think the Vikings are the better team. I just am shocked that it's Carson Wentz that's under center, but hey, Vikings, were able to do this last year. So I'm going to go the Vikings in this game.
Yep, I agree with you, Phil. If there's 2 things that will travel, including across a pond, it is defense and a run game. They showed a good pulse, granted, against a depleted Cincinnati Bengals, but, Pittsburgh didn't look so good against Seattle. It took them until late to put away the New England Patriots. Give me the Vikings to lay the points. Battle of 3-0 teams coming up in the 1 o'clock window. The Philadelphia Eagles, fresh off a walk-off win over the LA Rams, laying 3.5 as they travel to take on the also 3-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Bucks have some injury issues. They have to contend with. They have Mike Evans going to be out. Um, they have been playing really well. I don't know. I think the Eagles are going to get this one done, though. I think they're still a little bit better than the Bucks, and I think the Bucks are due for a comeback to earth game.
I agree with you, Phil, and laying points on the road, not a recipe for sustained success, but I will say
Yeah.
this. It's 3 games in a row that it's taken Baker Mayfield and the offense to lead a game-winning drive in the final minutes. At some point, that's not sustainable.
No.
Give me the Eagles to tush push their way to a victory in the Tampa St. Pete Metroplex. Last game on our docket, Phil, is America's Game of the Week, 425 window. The Baltimore Ravens, fresh off a loss to our very own Detroit Lions, laying 2.5 as they travel to Arrowhead Stadium. And what's crazy about this game, Phil, is both teams are 1-2.
Yeah.
Ergo, the loser of this game falls to an unthinkable 1-3 at the quarter pole.
I just don't like what I've seen from the Chiefs this year. I really don't. What is their identity? What are they good at? Who are their go-to options on offense? I think at least with Baltimore, there's an identity that's in place. Hey, listen, we took it to them. We'll gladly take the win. Baltimore's still an elite team, and just like we said, what can travel is defense and a running game. And I think they're going to get back to the basics with that against the Chiefs, and I'll take the Ravens.
I'm going to take the Ravens as well. And you think about who it is that they lost to. They lost to the Buffalo Bills in a game they should have probably won on Sunday Night Football that we're probably going to look back on and say that's a top 5 regular season game.
Yeah.
And you lost to the Detroit Lions, to where average Jack in Charleston, South Carolina, who just loves football, is going to look back at the game he watched, Lions Ravens, and say this is probably going to be a top 10 NFL regular season game. Kansas City has not looked nearly as inspiring in any of their games because the Giants might be the worst team in the NFL, and they didn't look at all dominating or inspiring against the
No.
Giants. Give me the Ravens to get right, to go to 2-2 and send the Chiefs again to a unfathomable 1-3 start to this 2025 season. Phil, if there's one thing that we can keep coming back to, it's that nobody really knows anything at all.
No, we don't. We'll lose all these picks, and the Chiefs will somehow go on a 10-game win streak or something like that. It's the NFL. This is so hard to predict, but Vince, this was, like I said at the beginning, one of the most memorable Lions games I can ever remember. The fact that it happened this early on, the fact that just a couple weeks ago we had all these doubts in the world. We thought that the sky was falling, and lo and behold, I think we're safe to say the sky is not falling.
Amen, brother. All right. As much as I'd like to keep this going, we need to go our separate ways. So that's
Time for
all
bed.
she wrote here on
Get some
Kneecaps for
sleep.
Breakfast. One thing we can tell you is that Phil and I will be back after the Lions take on the Cleveland Browns, hopefully after a winning effort. We'll be back to our normal schedule, so we will talk to you bright and early Monday morning. For Phil Byrne across the way, Vince Progar saying good morning, go Lions, forward down the field, over and out.